What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Triple H podcast. Happy Hour Hoops. Steve, Jake, and myself here to talk all things NBA. It's Thursday, December 5th, guys, and it's crazy. We're in December. Thanksgiving is come and gone. True thick of the NBA season. The NBA Cup quarterfinals are set. And we're here, fellas. How is everything? I know we just talked Thanksgiving off air, but how are you guys doing?
Oh, you know I'm doing great, Tony. You know I'm doing great. We're back. We're back. We had a one of my favorite holidays all year, Thanksgiving. Can't complain. We had a great Thanksgiving. Minus, Thanksgiving football not too great. NBA Christmas is always better than Thanksgiving football. I'll be the first to say it. I'll always defend it. I'm doing great. The Mavericks are back. Happy Hour Hoops is back. How could I not be doing great, Tony?
Love it. Jake, how you doing,
well
man?
said. That's well said, Steve. Yeah, life's good. I can't believe it's December though. It is.
I know.
It is wild. I don't know where the time has gone. We're a quarter of the way through. Like my one of the shout out, one of the I can't. No, I'm not going to shout it out. One of the Cavs podcasts I listened to. I don't remember the name of it, but it was like quarter poll today was come out, and I was like quarter way. And then I go look at the standings. I'm like, yep, that's about the quarter of the way, which it doesn't feel like it. But here we are, NBA Cup coming up, which we'll talk about in a second next week. I'd like to hear what you guys think about the Cup action going on. But yeah, great holiday. Great to be back. We missed last week, obviously, due to Thanksgiving. I will say, Steve, you have to admit it was funny watching the Bears like implode at least. So they at least gave us that. But there's been some good basketball over the last week.
The Bears find new ways to win. The Giants-Cowboys game was the perfect game for me to take a nap and not feel like I was missing anything. Yeah, and exactly. I was hanging out with the family playing some games during the Packers-Dolphins. So you know what? For what it was, the first half and I guess towards the end of the Bears-Lions game, great. Fantastic. Then I ate food and I was checked out. Beautiful. We don't need to talk about the Thanksgiving games. We got much, much better games coming up, gentlemen. I can't wait. Dunny, my mood's changed a little bit. That's what happens. That's what happens when my team wins 9-10. But I'll let you get to the news and notes first, Dunny, before I start going all off.
Jake is a saint here for putting this in at the top of the news and notes because we can take a look at the efficiency landscape. And if we look at this in the NBA, Jake put this graphic in for you guys who are listening. We have it pulled up here, but all three of our teams are in the quadrant you want to be in. It's the quadrant of wow. Shout out to Kirk Goldsberry for this efficiency landscape, but the Celtics, Cavs, and Mavs are all sitting in the quadrant of wow, along with the Rockets who just make it, Warriors, Grizzlies, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like I said, if you are watching, you can see the efficiency landscape, but the rest of it kind of goes how you would expect. But it is just crazy to see some of these teams who jump off.
Not the Wizards who are just in the worst position.
Worst net, worst offense, worst defense. That's why they're not winning many games.
Crazy. I'm surprised by the right in the center here, the Spurs, who
I was literally just about to say.
There we go. Look at that. We've been doing this for a while, don't we? It's crazy. I would not have expected that. They've been fun this year, but not there. I guess they are above 500. That West is kind of crazy, but the Spurs, they're playing some sustainable basketball. It seems like.
How about the Knicks too? Look at the defense for the Knicks and just.
All right, so the Knicks. It's interesting because the Knicks have basically decided like we're just a new team this year, and now it's kind of working that they're kind of meshing it around it where they've picked it up the last couple. I declared the Knicks dead a couple weeks ago, and I think I have to reel back on that. They're 8-2 in their last 10, but the East just figured it out in the last 10 games, which will
Milwaukee started winning some games.
Yeah, Milwaukee being in the middle after their start is pretty crazy there, and then Orlando without Paolo, while they are not
surprising though with Orlando, because usually you would think defense with Orlando, especially without Paolo, right?
Yeah,
Franz has just been
a monster, and it's a great point. Paolo is a guy who is, I think, when he comes back, he's a guy who can fit seamlessly wherever he needs to. Like Paolo could do anything. And Paolo doesn't seem like a guy who's going to be like demanding the ball back. So kind of working with Franz because Franz didn't have a good summer. And he struggled a little bit then, but
he struggled at the end of last season too.
Yeah, his shots especially in that series against Cleveland couldn't hit a 3 for anything. So this is really encouraging for him to do without Paolo. And I don't think they should be worried when they have to come back, like integrating that in there. I think their offense will be just fine.
Yeah, I agree that what the biggest surprise to this might be the Warriors still sitting in the quadrant of WoW after I believe they've lost 5 straight now.
Yeah. They had such a good point differential and start to the season, though. I think that kind of helps them there.
Yeah, and then, a lot of these teams that are kind of outliers on this graphic we will get to today. So the efficiency landscape, a good little check-in on the league here. And speaking of that, the NBA Cup quarterfinals are set. Tuesday next week, we have Magic at Bucks, Mavericks at Thunder. Wednesday, we have Hawks, Knicks, Warriors, Rockets. Just quick thoughts, NBA Cup so far. I despise some of the courts. I can tolerate some of the courts, and I'm pretty neutral, would rather just normal courts most of the time. But the gameplay has been cool for me. I like it. I like how it's a different feel than regular NBA season or regular NBA regular season games. I like that it kind of gets a crowd of non-basketball fans watching for some reason too. I feel like I hear more people who don't normally talk basketball talk about the NBA Cup games, which
if they're just asking like what's going on with these basketball games, right? I feel like that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe that might have been behind the thinking of this idea for Adam Silver and the rest of the guys in the NBA who make those decisions, because people definitely talk about it. The point differential thing makes end of games crazy, and that gets people talking for days to come after these. I think the last minute of the Cavs Celtics took 17 real-time minutes or something like that. Yeah, so it's nuts. But what are your guys' thoughts on the Cup so far as we're set for the quarterfinals?
I hate the courts. I think that's the first thing. I hate the courts. As someone who is one of those colorblind people, the courts suck with certain games. It's a tough watch. But I do love the point differential, and I think it's a good way. I think there's incentive. I do think there's some teams that don't care as much as other ones. Dunny, your team, if they cared, they'd be in the quarterfinals. I truly kind of believe that. But in all honesty, I do kind of like it because you're seeing kind of the starters in playoff type scenarios on the court, if that makes sense, right? You're kind of seeing these guys play the amount of minutes because of the point differential that they would if it was a playoff series. And yeah, it doesn't hold that type of weight, and maybe it's not the exact same, but it gives you kind of a little preview, especially for some of these teams that might be more inexperienced. And when we look into the quarterfinals, a team like the Houston Rockets, they get to play the Golden State Warriors again in kind of a playoff-like game. The Rockets have been one of the better surprises, I would say, of this NBA season so far, just the way they're playing, the depth they have and everything. So it's a chance to kind of see how that team is going to play in kind of like a playoff type situation. Another team, which I think we were kind of dead wrong on, and I have completely 180'd on this team, is the Atlanta Hawks, where the Atlanta Hawks now get to play the New York Knicks. We know that rivalry in the past of Ice Trae in the Garden.
Yeah.
But it's just another situation where, you're going to kind of see these rivalries start to build up a little bit. You're going to start to see them kind of feel more like the postseason. The Mavericks Thunder, how that rivalry was all of last year with the MVP chase between Luka and Shea. And now, a chance to play in kind of that quarterfinal, one game. Let's see what you got. NBA Cup style. I like it. I personally enjoy watching these games if it wasn't for the courts, because like I said, you see more the starters, you see the main players for more of the game. I think it was Orlando against the Knicks, where Orlando was getting absolutely clobbered and their starters were still in because of the point differential. Like they had to keep playing them.
It was Magic Knicks because if the Magic had won that game by 37, the Celtics would have got in. Or if they had lost by 37,
So I think that's cool, right? Because it's still you lost the game. Yeah, you're getting killed. But any other game, we're not seeing anyone we even recognize probably the entire fourth quarter on either team. That's when you're going as deep down the bench. But now it's like they're kind of still playing for something. And it's one of those situations, Dunny, I feel like, where it still makes that game exciting to watch. It's almost like similar if I'm going to bet on a college basketball team who's playing, let's say, like Arkansas Pine Bluff. I'm taking North Carolina against Arkansas Pine Bluff, and North Carolina's a 38-point favorite. And I'm like, oh, they'll win by 38. I'm watching that game usually till the end because it's probably hovering around a 36, 40-point game, and it's competitive. You never see those spreads in the NBA. So when an NBA game blows out normally, no one cares. Everyone stops caring about it. But in this situation in the NBA Cup, it felt like those blowouts, both fans on either team were still so invested because A, the starters were playing, and B, they were playing basically just at that point just to either minimize the damage or get as big of a lead as they can, even in the early games, because you never knew how important that point differential would be. And I thought that was very, very cool because I think that did something that most regular season sports, mainly baseball, mainly NBA, mainly NHL, because of how long their seasons are, struggle with. And that's making every regular season game feel important. And I think the NBA Cup did a good job of that with implementing kind of the point differential and having these teams play their starters, because it's like, you know what, we are down 24, but let's try to make this a 10-point loss instead of letting it get to 30.
Yeah. Well said. I like it. It's also, I know most NBA fans probably don't really care about this, but it also gives like the broadcasters something to talk about, because I was tuned into that Magic Knicks game the other night, and they kept bringing up how it was a blowout, but they're like, there's actually things that matter here.
Right.
And they're tracking the point score. I know you brought up gambling as far as spreads go, but I'm sure, you know, NBA fans who are maybe on the fence and who are also gamblers, I'm sure this brings in a different group of those type of people to watch these games. So it's definitely interesting. Year 2 with the NBA Cup, I think I'm starting to like it more than I ever thought I would. They're much more different games than I think I understood last year, and I'm here for it. I like it. I think it spices things up. I think it's, a time of year where people maybe stop caring about the NBA or haven't even started caring about the NBA just because of where the NFL season's at, and this I think brings in new eyes, and then probably, excites the people who are going to be watching anyway. So if you guys had to pick one team to run away with the money in the NBA Cup, who you got?
I'm going with the Houston Rockets. I think that's a team. A lot of young guys.
I knew you had to, Jake. You've been riding with them all year.
I picked them at the beginning of the year. A lot, and it's specifically for this situation. A lot of young guys. That's why the Hawks probably in this spot too. A lot of young guys and a coach who's going to make them play hard. Like Ime is going to get them motivated for that game against the Warriors. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Rockets just because of the motivation factor there. And they've been playing some great basketball and great defensive basketball, which has been awesome to see so far this year, like you said.
I'm going to go with the New York Knicks. Main reason is I feel like if there's any team that's ready for this kind of playoff style, it's the New York Knicks, because that's pretty much what they play all year long. Their starters, I think, were 1st, 3rd, and 7th in total minutes played across all players in the NBA. I want to say it was Josh Hart, Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges was number 1. So Bridges was 1, Anunoby 7th, and Josh Hart 3rd in minutes played. Of course, all NBA teams, they have 3 of the top 7, which is crazy. Of the next 2 also, I feel like they have depth. They have 2 guys who can kind of take over games offensively when they need to. And this is also, this is the Tibbs coach team. I feel like the Knicks are just going to care about this. And sometimes you have to get the team that's going to care. And I'm not saying the Knicks aren't a playoff team. I think they're one of the best teams in the East. But I feel like most of these teams, if you look right now in the Cup, I think are all going to go to the playoffs. I think that's a fair thing to say. There might be, I think Milwaukee would be the only one, record-wise, kind of on the bubble, but it's a Giannis-led team. They're going to the playoffs. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But I feel like the New York Knicks, for them, it just feels like big market, New York, give the fans something to like celebrate. Obviously, they care about the NBA Finals, but with the way this team's structured, the way they play them in the regular season, I think they'd be the most prepared to win the cup.
You nailed my answer, Steve. I was going to take the Knicks for a lot of the same reasons. They're in a similar spot that I think the Pacers were in last year, and I think a lot of us thought the Pacers might run away with the NBA Cup just because they were playing like one of the best offenses in basketball. I remember this part of the season, everyone's like, holy shit, the Indiana Pacers. That's kind of what everyone's saying about the Knicks right now. We saw their offense on the efficiency landscape. So they're balling. You mentioned it. They got guys like Brunson. They got guys like Cat, and Tibbs is going to play his guys into the ground, whether it's a regular season game or an NBA Cup game.
Just what he does.
Yeah. It's his DNA. He can't change it.
It's just what he does. Yeah.
And the Knicks are motivated to win. I think they probably came up short to where they wanted to last year in the playoffs. This is a kind of an opportunity for them to let the league know they're here and they're trying to win games with this new look. But yeah, we'll see. I like the Knicks as well. This is going to be interesting. I'm ready for this Warriors-Rockets game next week. A lot of bad blood over the last few seasons. A weird beef between two teams that don't have like a legitimate rivalry, but for some reason just hate each other. And yeah, it'll be good.
We got like 3 of the 4 technically rivalry games, right? Warriors, Rockets, they've kind of had bad beef lately. Knicks, Hawks, we know all about Trae Young and the Knicks. And then Mavs, Thunder. Those games, every time they play each other feels like a war, and they don't like each other either on the court. And I'll tell you what, PJ Washington, he stands on business against OKC, and he's going to continue to do that. So
we might even get some early.
Go
ahead, Jake. We're both too kind. I was just gonna say we might. I was gonna say we might get some early SGA Luka narratives.
Yeah, we might. You know what? They keep the narratives going all they want because the Mavs won the playoff series. Luka's been stop it. They got to stop. They're force feeding that. I saw. I'm not gonna rant, but I saw like, oh, who's the best young player you want in the NBA? And they don't put Luka in there, but they put Shea with Ant-Man and Wemby. Stop it. Shea's older than Luka. Luka's better. Just accept it. Let's move past it. It's over. Shea's a great player. Top 5 in the league. He's not top 3. I'm done. All right, go ahead, Steve.
I don't even need to follow that up. Mine was just going to be it's just going to be about the Rockets Warriors. We're good though. Let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, so that was our little NBA Cup preview that right there. We'll obviously talk much more about it next week after these games are played. So follow along on Twitter and all socials. I'm sure we'll have some coverage of the NBA Cup there. We just talked about a bunch of teams that we're familiar with. A team that many, probably all, aren't familiar with is the Toronto Tempo, the newest WNBA franchise. So the WNBA expanding, making moves here. I don't think it should be a surprise to anyone. I think after the boom in popularity the WNBA had this past year, just between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and just the big shots that were happening throughout the finals and the playoffs for the WNBA. I mean, just a really supersonic rise for this sport and this league, and here they are expanding. I wouldn't have guessed Toronto. I think if someone said, where do you think the next WNBA city is going to be? But it definitely makes sense. They have a love of basketball there. The Raptors aren't too far removed from winning a championship. So they know about winning. They have the culture. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Little international market too. I know Toronto's not truly international, but it is. Like that's international market there. Pretty cool, big city. And the WNBA, like you said, they're just trying to, I think, capitalize on the kind of the star power they have in the league right now. The New York Liberty just won the NBA championship, and you talk about as much star power as anyone with Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu, so that's huge. we look at the games last year, top most viewed, best rated games. Looking at women's college basketball, I think had 4 of the top 10 spots. I think 3 of them were at the Iowa games. And, everyone wants to talk about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and that was the reason. But we're also looking at women's college basketball with Paige Beckers and Juju Watkins as 2 of kind of the biggest stars in women's college basketball. And I think we're going to see more ratings with that and more into the WNBA. So got to expand the teams, got to kind of balance the talent out a little bit, because I feel like the WNBA, only having 12 teams in the league does have not a super team problem. I don't want to call it a problem, but there's a little bit of imbalance of talent, but there's so much talent coming in from college these next couple of years. So I think it's the perfect time to try to get another team.
Yeah, it's exciting to see the league expanding. It's definitely overdue, like you said, with the amount of talent coming in. I know that I believe Golden State, the Bay Area, is getting one next year. And I believe that Cleveland just put in a bid for a team last week as well, or is trying to start a campaign. So the league's growing. Obviously, markets are interested in it. It's a great return on that investment, because there's so much fan interest as it is now. So it's fun to see. I can't wait to see how big they can get, because I imagine the teams, once you start rolling with teams and it starts working, there's going to be more and more cities that pop up here. Yeah. We could be at like a full size league here, and there's definitely enough talent to make it work. And then once there's enough games and stuff like that going on, then we'll really see like TV money and TV deals and stuff come in, and you start talking about some real money getting into the league. Because if you have, even if it's, what are they at right now? 14. So even if you get up to 24, like that's a lot of games that you gotta play, and places that people are going to want to see their teams. So it's all good news. It's really exciting to see for the Dub.
Yeah, and just to add to that with the teams, I think fairly recently Tatum said he has his sights set on a $200 million bid to bring a WNBA franchise to St. Louis, where he grew up. So
be sick.
Just a lot of expansion here. Obviously, St. Louis with no NBA team, trying to get a WNBA team, and we just mentioned some other cities. Obviously, Toronto is going through with it, so. Very cool stuff. Shout out the Dub. And yeah, we'll have a lot of more women's college basketball this year, and see who the next bright star is going to be. This next piece of news here is something that I have been wanting to talk with you guys about, because the Lakers lose 6 of last 8. They lose by 41 to Miami. And it's almost like, where do you start with this team? Because there's so much going on. I think our first or second episode of this season, after the season started, I said maybe Darvin Ham just sucked. Now JJ's having his own struggles coaching this team. Lakers having their own struggles in general. LeBron having his own individual struggles. Where are we at with the Lakers, guys?
It feels like the same story all over again, right? It just feels like the same story as last year, when LeBron isn't there to kind of hard carry, when Anthony Davis is, I don't even want to say fully locked in, but when Anthony Davis isn't putting up those 30 and 15 games, they just don't really have an identity. And that's kind of what it's turned into. And like I said, I like some of their guys. I like Austin Reeves. I thought Dalton Knecht was a great pick. D'Angelo Russell's up and down, but he's fine. But this is a team that's only going to go as far as their star players, and I don't want to root on their downfall, but LeBron's not getting any younger. Anthony Davis isn't getting any healthier. Like it's really just going to come down to these 2 guys, and that's, I think, been the big issue with the Lakers last year. It's the big issue with the Lakers again this year. I feel like. Especially if you watch the games at the first couple games, we saw something different, right? We automatically were like, wait, this feels like a different team, the way they're playing. And as the season's kind of gone on, it just kind of feels like, all right, LeBron, have Anthony Davis set the pick. All right, you're either going to throw it to him, or you're going to do it, or LeBron's going to kick it out, try to have someone take a 3. It just seems boring basketball, and that's the opposite of what you wanted when you bring in a coach like JJ Redick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's everything you said is 100% right about this team. They can't play. The roster is flawed extremely, and they really don't have any interest in playing defense right now.
No.
It starts from LeBron, who hasn't played defense for years, and LeBron struggled for like the last week offensively. Davis just had his worst game offensively. So it's like these guys put everything into getting this thing jump started, and maybe they both just don't have it in them to be those engines the whole time with this kind of team. That's what it seems like. And whatever adjustments got made to what JJ started throwing at teams the beginning of the year, let's see if he can counterpunch. He's a first-year coach. You know, he's gonna obviously have to take some time to make those adjustments, but like you said, they don't really have the time. And this West is super competitive, and to go on a swing like this and just be so disappointing has got to be disheartening for everybody in that organization right now. But it is an East Coast swing for a West Coast team who maybe it's just, you know, one of those things too. But they're negative in the point differential right now. Like, it's not encouraging signs, but we'll see. Like, it could be a thing where they're just going to be, this is who they are all year, and they're going to be, you know, maybe a 40-win team, maybe a 45-win team, just depending on how some breaks go, and that could get them into the playoffs. It couldn't. But we know the flaw. This team is the same team they've been the last couple of years. We know the flaws. We know the heights they can get to if the stars are playing that way. But it's tough to ask LeBron to do that anymore. And he's questionable tomorrow night for the Hawks game already. So like now it's starting. Okay, is LeBron gonna start missing games for maintenance, stuff like that? What does the team look like after that? So it's interesting times for JJ right now.
Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, obviously there's going to be fans on every team that overreact in times like this, but it's just crazy the swing we've seen from, you know, the first couple of weeks where I you know, I don't want to say fell for it because jury's still out on whether JJ is a good coach or not. I mean, no one should be judging if he's a good coach or not based on this little of a sample size, but it did seem like, oh my God, you know, we have the next coaching savant here in JJ Redick. He almost had, I think I brought this up before on the pod, but like he has similar like Joe Mazzulla like pressers, and I don't know, like everyone just liked JJ as a media personality. Then he comes in and starts winning games. You lose 6 of 8, things start to change. I've seen Lakers fans calling for JJ's job. It's crazy. The craziest part to this stretch for me though, and I wanted to bring this up, LeBron was on a stretch where he missed 20 straight threes. Yeah. And only LeBron could do this, because do you guys know what happened when he finally broke that stretch and hit his 3?
No.
He moved up to 7th all time on the 3-pointers made. He passed Kyle Korver. So only LeBron can go a week without hitting a 3-pointer. And then the 3-pointer he makes to break the 20 misses in a row streak, he just casually moves to 7 all time in 3-pointers made. This guy's fucking unbelievable, man. Like, you know, he's having such a shit week. They lose 6 of 8. He even says himself he's playing bad offensively right now. And, oh, yeah, but let me just move up higher on the all-time 3-pointers made list.
It's getting hard to find a top 10 all-time NBA list that doesn't have LeBron James' name on it.
Exactly.
It's getting hard. It's getting hard at this point. It's crazy.
Yeah. So we can leave Lakers fans with that. Cool way to get out of a slump for LeBron. I saw that and I was like, did I read that right? So pretty cool if you're LeBron James. Lakers definitely have some work to do. Speaking of work, Stephen A. Smith to sign a $20 million deal with ESPN. Is this why they're axing their personalities left and right so they can put the bill for Stephen A?
10 years, $20 million per year. That's the rumor right now.
Dude, that's
$200 million for Stephen A. How much return on investment are you getting for $200 million in Stephen A?
I mean, like, Stephen A gets clicks. I will say that he does.
He's very
$200 million though. Is he worth?
Yeah, I do. And did that many people really want to hear him talk?
Maybe I'm in the wrong here, but I was just baffled that.
Is he going to be like all 3 seats on First Take? Is just going to be 3 Stephen A's? Molly and Mad Dog are gone.
Well, that show, I don't know. The fact that it's even named First Take at this point, it isn't just like the Stephen A. Smith Hour or something or whatever you want to call it. They might do better if it was named that, honestly, at this point.
I think Stephen A is kind of the perfect type of person to cater towards your average Joe fan, where whoever, if they're just going to turn on a sports talk show in the morning, like that's kind of the personality, that's the guy you want. You can't. I'm not the biggest Stephen A. Smith fan in terms of his takes, but in terms of like who he is and the way he approaches everything, and you have to give the man credit. Like one thing I loved about Stephen A. what he said is he's like, anyone can become Stephen A. You can't just become LeBron James. If you're like, I want to be LeBron James, so you can't. He's like, you can become Stephen A. He's like, you just have to put the work in. You have to put the time in. And Stephen A. works as hard as anyone. He did that. He became this type of juggernaut media personality. So, I don't know what they are worth at this point, right? It's worth as much as they're going to pay you. And if you're Stephen A., you get $20 million a year. I don't think you say no to that. But it also feels like a deal to keep him around too, right? To not let him go elsewhere. Not that I think he'd leave, but sometimes you got to play to the market, and maybe that's what the market's at. Maybe there was someone else reaching out.
I'm sure Amazon and NBC were coming with some big money offers to see some basketball.
Yeah, then you have all the gambling companies as well throwing their money at whoever these days to get. So yeah, I guess it makes sense when it all boils down for ESPN. I mean, shout out Stephen A, dude, get your bag.
20 million.
Crazy. So yeah, well, you guys will be seeing Stephen A scream on your local television for a lot longer, it seems like. Last bullet point here in the news: Durant to miss 1 to 2 weeks, Zion out at least 2 more weeks. The Zion thing, I don't know what's going on there. Durant, it just sucks, man. Like I just love watching Durant play basketball. So anytime he's out, I get sad. And it's kind of as simple as that for me.
No, I agree. And at this point too, honestly, like.
Yeah, and if you guys want, we can get right into the 3 big things here because mine just so happens to segue perfectly. And for my big thing this week, I want to pose it to you guys as a question. I'm not saying we have to do this. I'm not saying this is correct, but it's just something I thought of over the last week. One, the memes got me about Zion, just showing him at age 24 and then LeBron at age 41 and just the difference of how they take care of each other. And then I got to thinking about Zion's just inability to stay on the basketball court, the state that the Pelicans are in right now and where they could be if he could stay on the court. Because I do think the Pelicans are a team with tons of potential. I think everyone has thought that since Zion has got there, but they can't seem to figure it out. And a big part of that is because Zion doesn't play. I was then watching the Celtics and Pistons last night, and Cade Cunningham had a pretty good game. And I know there's been some injuries in there, and I don't know why I lumped these 2 guys together. I think they're just both number 1 overall picks. A year apart in age, but 2 years apart in the draft. So Zion was 19. He went first overall. Cade was 2021, went first overall. My question to you guys is it okay to admit that guys like Cade and Zion aren't who we thought they were? Or am I being too critical of 24 and a 23-year-old basketball player?
Zion's tough because the expectations for him were out of this world, right? And I don't think he's ever kind of proven when he's on the court that he can't reach that type of hype or that type of potential. We've kind of seen he just can't stay on the court, and so you're dealing with kind of a health thing there more than the actual basketball talent, because I think we saw even last year when Zion wasn't like fully 100%, but he was playing, I think he averaged like 21, like 6 and 6. And, anyone else, you're like, that's a pretty good season. But with Zion, you feel a little disappointed because of the expectations, you put on him. But a lot of the times when you see these guys kind of have that year 3, year 4 breakout, it's because they've been playing every game. And they have that, game experience. Zion doesn't really have that. So he's already feels like he's a couple years behind. Then you also deal with the injuries and everything. Cade Cunningham's a little different to me, Dunny. I think he was a number 1 overall pick. He was a very good player at Oklahoma State. I know he drew some Luka comparisons, but I never saw him as being like a true superstar. I thought he'd be a very good basketball player. And sometimes you just have to accept that is what it is. Like, you can be a very good basketball player and just not be a superstar. It just happens all the time across the league. There are guys that are very good basketball players, but not true superstars. And I think the Detroit Pistons are, a tough spot because I think they have a few guys who are very good basketball players, but they don't really have that true superstar. And Cade, I don't want to say he will never live up to his potential because I don't think he ever had the true amount of hype that some other number 1 overall picks had. I think he did have hype, but it was because he was going 1 overall, right?
Yeah,
but
I think he was just very clearly the 1 in that draft,
yes.
And it just wasn't really that loaded of a draft.
But I don't think he ever got to that level of hype or, potential as some of these other true number 1 picks or some of these international guys that came over to the league. So to live up to it, I guess I would say I don't want to call Cade a disappointment because I think he's still a very good player. But I think you're right where maybe there was some form of idea that Cade would have been good enough to carry the Pistons if that is his potential, and that clearly hasn't been the case. So I guess my answer would be yeah. I don't think they're going to ever live up to the potential, but sometimes that's an unfair question because I think sometimes we put too high of expectations on certain guys. And I think Cade Cunningham is one where it's like you trying to carry this Pistons team. Yeah, you're a very good basketball player, Cade, but you're not a true enough superstar to really carry an entire franchise. And that's not a bad thing because there's only about 5-6 guys who could really do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough question to ask. I guess you made me kind of realize when you were talking, like just the state of the Pelicans and state of the Pistons, and like looking at that and like just kind of where these guys were supposed to take these franchises, which again, unfair expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with what you said there too. It's just, it almost seems like we keep waiting. And this is more on Zion. It's just, I guess I had higher expectations for Cade too. It just really looks like even when Zion's out there, it's like, is that moving the needle for the Pelicans to be where everyone else is trying to be, and that's contending in this league.
Right.
But Jake, what are your thoughts here? Am I being too harsh on these young fellas, 24, 23 years old? Oh, you're mute, monster, Jake.
Well, no one's being too hard on Zion. That's the thing. Like,
okay.
It's been very simple for Zion. Like, get into shape, bro. And maybe he really just has issues getting into shape. Maybe that's what it is. But he came into the season with apparently the best shape he's been in this year. They say that like almost every year, and he's still having the same injury issues. Maybe his body's just never going to be able to. Maybe he's just a weirdly built human being, and it's never really going to work out. He's not supposed to be exploding off the floor like he does, and then all the damage it has done to his hamstrings and knees and ligaments and everything else like that. Maybe, but it seems to me like the issue with Zion has always been him getting in his own way in a lot of different ways. And it's not like the Pelicans are to blame as well too, because if he goes to a better basketball situation than the Pelicans, who are one of the worst run organizations in the NBA, maybe his career turns out a little bit differently. Not saying that he would be, all NBA level talent and wouldn't have the injury issues or anything else, but he was not insulated properly with the Pelicans until really it was too late, and it was kind of a disaster. But the way they kind of tried to do it with and the way it's bore out now with how many people needed the ball and the type of player Ingram was and everything else. So you got to give him kudos for trying to do it, but it's a bad organization. I think that hurt Zion as much too. But it doesn't seem like he was really completely dedicated to start out for in the first couple of years either. And maybe that is just the organization's fault for not getting him properly motivated. Like, he knew he was going to get that second contract from no matter what and get that money. So Zion's a cautionary tale with a guy, that size and the kind of injuries he had. But it's also the organization with the Pistons and Cade. They really messed up last year with the Monty Williams thing. And that was like, I think that set this whole team back a couple years in the development, where last year should have been a year where it was all about Cade, Ivy, and Duren, and just how can we make this our big three? And instead, Monty Williams is, benching Jaden Ivey for games upon games, just doing weird stuff with the rotations and everything like that. And I still think they're kind
Hayes, by the way.
Yeah, for Killian Hayes, bro. Where's Killian Hayes now, right? Like, and so I really think they did a disservice to it.
He's playing in the parking lot behind my apartment right now.
I think he is. Yeah, you can hear the shots going up, the bricks that are hitting right now.
Oh yeah, they're not hitting. They're not hitting the rim.
They're not falling. That's the thing. And I'm not a big JB Bickerstaff fan, guys. We know this, so I don't think he's set up with the best coach to help him succeed, especially offensively. JB's thing is he's going to want to grind everything down and make the guards kind of be able to create on their own. And I don't think Cade needs to be more of like wouldn't you feel like Cade right now? I mean, his stats aren't bad. It was like 23-9, but wouldn't you rather Cade be like 19-12? Like if you were to talk about what's Cade Cunningham's ideal like production, I don't want him in upper 20s. I want him moving. Like his best thing is his ball movement and his smarts and his IQ and everything. And I just feel like he's never been used properly in the NBA. Like he's been used more of like as a Luka, like light-hearted, light player. And I'm sure he can do that too, to an extent. But I think his best use is being like the connector for all these other guys on this team. And he's never been used like that. And JB Bickerstaff is not going to use him like that. So I think these are two guys uber talented who were put into pretty bad situations and that they haven't really recovered from that too. So that's the tough part.
That's a great point, Jake. Maybe the conversation is more taking a deeper look at the Pelicans and Pistons organization and seeing what obviously the Pelicans have never really done anything because they're a newer franchise, and then the Pistons really haven't been great since the 90s.
I mean, yeah, you like think about all these teams that like stay bad, like the Hornets. Like you could put LaMelo in this conversation too.
Yep.
Like the Hornets should be so much of a better team. LaMelo, isn't he averaging like 30 right now? Pretty sure he's averaging 30.
It's like 36.
And what are they doing? It's like there's so many of these teams where it's just bad teams stay bad, right? Like, and these are Detroit and New Orleans are definitely examples of that. Charlotte would be another one, and it's just they keep finding ways to fumble these really talented players.
Well, this was good for me. I think what I'm doing coming out of this is I'm taking a closer look at these two franchises instead of maybe the two players under a big lens. And Zion, I think I might just be pretty close
Zion
to out
would be fair if you were done with, because the injuries are too much to get over.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. It's like just, another 2 weeks today is what it said, right? Like,
right.
I guess what I'm out on about Zion is just the fact that I don't want to keep hearing about the Pelicans' potential or his individual potential until we see a little more. Because before, year one and year two where he couldn't get on the court, it was like, okay, let's see it. And then there was let's get him and Barrett to play together while Duke days were still fresh in our mind. I'm like, all right, I'm here for that too. But I don't really want to hear how good the Pelicans might be when Zion and everyone gets back on the court together, or Ingram and Zion's going to work this year. I think I'm just done with it, man. And Cade, I think might have just been prisoner of the moment watching Celtics Pistons last night and just wondering when he was going to start popping off. But we'll see. Maybe Cade can get out of Detroit. Before we go to Jake's big thing, who do you guys think will leave their respected team first? Or be sent out in a trade where they don't have to leave on their own, but just
probably Zion.
I
think Zion. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw Zion trade on for the other day pop up, and you guess who the favorite is to trade for Zion Williamson. Who do you think it is?
I hope it's not the Lakers.
It's the Lakers. Every single one of these trade things is like the Lakers.
It's the Heat of the Lakers every time, bro.
Every time.
Because of course. Imagine the Lakers with Zion, LeBron, and Anthony Davis. That would be the most hilarious trade.
That would be combined 4 games.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to do it. LeBron would play the most out of all 3 of them. So
probably true.
I don't know. No, I'm just saying. Jake, what's your big thing?
All right, we talked about him a little bit earlier, and I was hyping him up at the beginning of the year. They're helping, but we need a win total update. We'll get that next week, but I'm pretty sure this team's helping hold up my end of the bargain here. The Houston Rockets, are they for real? Is this a team right now, the plus 7.4 differential, so it's third in the West. There's 15-7 for second place in the West. They have so much depth and so many different options. And we're all big Ime Udoka fans here, I think, with the way he can coach. And this dude, he is coaching them to one of the best defenses in the NBA, much like he did a couple years ago with Boston and how good defensively they were. And he's not afraid, there'll be sitting guys that you're just like, what's going on here? Like Jalen Green just sitting for the end of a stretch of a game where you're like, I thought he was like, the star scoring. They don't care. Like whoever's getting it done for him will go out there, and they have so many options. They might have to make a move at some point to kind of condense this, but for right now, it's looking good, and it's like a team that just it could be one of those young teams that's just clicking at the right time and just figured it out all together. And I think this is more about though Ime and how great of a coach he is. If you give him a roster with, above average talent, he can make things happen. And that's what's happening with this team. And I really like the talent. I don't know if there's one guy on Houston that I particularly love, I'm putting all my chips into, but there's a lot of guys that I really like. Like I really like, Eason. I like Ahmed Thompson's. I don't even know what he is, but it's just like what he does on the court. Van Vliet is not the same player he used to be, but on some nights he can be a driver for them. It's a really nice. It's like between him and Green, they both kind of balance each other out because they could both be so erratic. Like they just have answers for all their holes. I feel like just directly on their roster. If someone's slacking, they can kind of just change it up. It's a really impressive makeup of the team, and the coach has been impressive for 2 years straight now.
Yeah. I mean, this is a team that's got 7 players averaging in double digits, which is a rarity in the NBA nowadays. That's crazy. And like you said, this is a team that's kind of built on their defense. That Ime Udoka, that's kind of just what happens when he comes into. That's the culture he kind of builds. And it's a team that's, very athletic across the board. Everyone who starts for them, the guys who come off the bench, like Tari Eason, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, those guys off the bench, they're all athletic freaks. And this is a team that, I think is going to be a very fun team in the regular season. And I'll be interested to see where they finish at the end of the season in the Western Conference standings. I think they're a playoff team. I'm not sure if they will be a top 4 seed. But the one thing that kind of concerns me, Jake, and you brought it up a little bit, and I kind of think it's more of a red flag than maybe a green one, is kind of the erraticness of certain players with like Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet, because I've talked about this every single year after year, that once we get to the playoffs, your team's only going to go as far as how your superstars want to carry you. And I think, Donnie, you know this as well as anyone, is yes, it's a team sport. The NBA is a team game, but at the end of the day, in the playoffs, it is such a star-driven league, and you have to have those guys you can rely on. And I love Alperen Sengun. I think he's the best player on the Houston Rockets. I don't know if he's the guy they can rely on a night-to-night offensively. Jalen Green, like you said, Jake, there's some nights he scores 40, and then there's other nights he has 8 points, and he can't hit water. And that's a big red flag for me. I know he's young. I know there's a lot of young players on this team. Jabari Smith, another one, Amen Thompson, and any of these guys can kind of snap at any moment. But there's also times where it almost feels like they can be a liability at times. And defense is only going to carry them so far. You know who they remind me is exactly kind of the Orlando Magic from last year, where the Orlando Magic was a team that was just kind of winning games based on defense, based on chemistry, based on culture. But when it comes to playing one of those top teams at the end, they just didn't have the star power. And that's something you kind of have to develop, or to have a guy step up. And I think there are times when Alperen Sengun can't step up to be that player. I think there are times when Jalen Green can step up to be that superstar. I think there are times when Fred VanVleet can channel his Toronto Raptor and have 30-point nights. Like, I do think there are times for all those guys, but the consistency just isn't there. And we're talking about a team in the Western Conference compared to the Eastern Conference. You guys have it made, right? You got your feet up on the lawn chair, hands up behind your head, Celtics and Cavs, you got it made. You got the Knicks out there. They're a little dangerous. Orlando's out there dangerous. You can never count out a Giannis team. But for the most part, there's not many true threats to win the Eastern Conference. Maybe to make some noise in the playoffs, but to truly win the Eastern Conference, not as many threats. You look at the Western Conference, guys, it's a war. It is a war zone. And the Houston Rockets, even though right now they're playing like one of the best teams, and I love their depth, and I think they have one of the deepest rosters. I think they're one of the best defensive teams. But if we were to go ahead right now, guys, and go through what we think are probably the top 10 teams in the Western Conference, and then of those 10 teams, we rank them just solely based on their best player or best two players, the Rockets are going to rank low. And I love Alperen Sengun. I do. He's one of my favorite players to watch. I think Jalen Green's a great basketball player. But at the end of the day, you need those kind of superstars to just get you over the hump, especially when you get to kind of those playoff games. And the Rockets, that's where they lack a little bit because of the inconsistency. And I don't want to say they're not for real, but for me, I think, it's a great start, but I think the Rockets are kind of a team we might see kind of fade off a little bit, and just once it gets to the playoffs, it wouldn't be a surprise first round exit.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. I guess my thing here would be like, what do we actually consider for real, which I think kind of is the point Steve was making there. Like, yes, they're really good. And, he said at the beginning there about the star talent, and you kind of need one of those guys in this league. So they don't really have that, or at least no one has emerged as that yet on this team. But if we're talking for real, a team that can make the playoffs, a team that can be someone who no one wants to play, who I think this is exactly who the Houston Rockets will be. I think, yeah, because they have strong talent and players that I believe in, and they have a coach that, like Jake said, we all believe in. And I've seen Ime do it. I've seen Ime turn around a middling Celtics team that had a 500 record in January and brought them to the NBA Finals. Obviously, that Celtics team is a lot more talented than this Rockets team, but he's doing it again. He's getting production. He's getting the best out of these guys. And so, yeah, I do think the Houston Rockets are for real. Playoff matchups, that's a different story. Can they win multiple playoff series? I don't know. But I think they could be a team that no one wants to see. And I think even that is you feel ahead of schedule if you're the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about the Rockets this year. I do agree that they got some issues for a playoff run, but hey, there's a lot of teams in the West with some issues too. Like there's really one of these teams. There's like 3 teams I feel pretty good about. That's about it. And one of them is I think Steve's going to talk about right here.
Yeah, we are going to talk about it because the dark days are over. Depressed Steve, NBA fans, over. The 4 straight losses by one possession games is over. The Mavs are back. They're the 3 seed in the West. They've won 9 of 10, and they're doing it in all ways possible. Luka was out for a stretch, and they were still winning games. And then Luka comes back. He looks completely different than he did at the start of this year now. And they're doing it with their I feel disrespectful calling them role players, but that's exactly what they are. They're doing it with their role players. PJ Washington, since he's came back from his injury, has been unbelievable. And the Mavericks records when PJ Washington, Derek Lively both in the lineup is one of the best in the NBA. I think only the Celtics have a better record since the deadline when the Mavs acquired PJ Washington than when the Mavericks have Washington and Lively in the lineup, or both healthy, I guess, at the same time. Their newly acquired acquisitions this offseason, Najee Marshall, 4 straight 20-point games. 4 straight 20-point games. Then he gets hurt, and he's been out for the past couple games. But guess what? He got hurt. Quentin Grimes, 3 straight 20-plus point games. They're getting production from those guys. They're doing something the Mavs teams the past 3-4 years haven't had, and that's kind of the depth and the bench scoring. Because at the end of the day, yes, you have 2 of the most, dominant, I guess, guys you can run an offense through in Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, what they can do in terms of playmaking, in terms of getting their own shot, in terms of just taking over games. Yes, you have that, but you got to find all the pieces to kind of work together. Klay Thompson hasn't been amazing this year, but he's doing what he needs to do. He averages about 13 points a game. He's playing fine defense, but Daniel Gafford has been incredible. Derek Lively, like I said, Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes. And it's like it feels like a complete team, which is crazy to me because I felt like last year was kind of a complete team. This feels even more so than last year, where they really are getting production from everyone. Even one of the guys who I think is the most frustrating player on the Mavs at times, Spencer Dinwiddie, has 20 plus points in 3 of his last 5 games. I mean, this is a team that's just getting production from everyone, and sometimes you have to make those, risky moves, or you have to bring in guys that maybe, have shown flashes like a Najee Marshall, like a Quentin Grimes, that haven't really proven themselves, and then they get the opportunities. And I don't want to say it was a blessing in disguise that Luka got hurt, but when Luka was out for, a stretch of games, these guys had to step up, and they did. And it started off kind of rough because PJ was still hurt and Lively was still out. But then once you get everyone back together, it just feels like it's a well-oiled machine. They're playing team basketball. And I know they had a big step at the end of last year, but it's no more ISO ball at the end of games. They're passing the ball. They're getting everyone involved. And this is a team that, next 2 games, they got, I don't want to call them scrimmages. I don't want to call them practices, but that's what they are. They're playing the Wizards and the Raptors. All right, you're just going to go through the motions, make sure everyone stays healthy, and then they got the cup against OKC. And that's going to be an interesting game for me because the Mavs beat OKC earlier. PJ Washington 27-17 in that game. And nobody plays better against OKC than PJ Washington. But now you get the cup game, kind of that playoff feel again. And I know OKC, the team they want to beat more than anyone, is the Dallas Mavericks right now. But I've just heard this talk so much. Thunder are the best, Thunder are the best, Thunder are the best team. Not just in the West, some people are saying in the league. And I know they're missing Chet Holmgren. And I have been on the Thunder side. I picked them to go to the NBA Finals this year. I picked them to go to the NBA Finals last year. But I think it's time to start to realize that the Mavericks won the Western Conference last year for a reason. That, their team was the second half team, not the first half team of last year. And even though they started a little slow and then had just 4 straight heartbreaks, 4 straight games losing by 3 or less is just ridiculous. And you knew the luck would turn around eventually. I didn't at that time because I was just beside myself. But the fact of the matter is you knew it would kind of turn. And right now it just feels like everything's clicking. And I might be a little biased right now. I might be feeling a little too good, a little homer, but they've won 9 of 10, 5 straight. They have some of the best offensive ratings and defensive ratings in the NBA. And it's like I said, I don't see this stopping anytime soon. I know the West is full of juggernauts, but I really think the Mavericks have established themselves as, I'm not going to say the best team in the West, but I'm going to say a 1A, 1B with Oklahoma City.
That's the West is so funny, man, because I think you're right about the West being full with juggernauts, but it's almost like it's just like the individuals at this point because like the Suns have KD, but like we saw how weird the Suns were last year, and like they're not. I know they've had injury trouble this year too, but they're nothing crazy right now.
Right.
The Warriors, they started super hot, but now they've kind of burnt out a little, and they have Steph, obviously. The Nuggets are the 8th seed right now. They have Jokic. Lakers, we know how they are. And I think, if you were to ask me, I'd probably say Thunder and Mavs are definitely the 2 most complete teams in the West. And that might be obvious because, they were both at the top of the West last year too. But the start of the season, I don't think many teams would have said that for the Mavs. But here they are. I think the most encouraging thing, Steve, too, for the Mavs is even though they lost those games, a lot of them were on the road too, and during a time where they banged up. Like home record this year is still 8-3. Like you mentioned, they've won 9 of 10, and they've just kind of got themselves back on track. And they really, even though it seemed bad and the losses all came so close together, they're the 3 seed right now, and they're 2.5 games back. So. It's still so early, but I'm with you, man. Like the Mavs look damn good, and they I think made some improvements. It's hard. It was hard to say like a week ago that they were a better team than last year, but I do truly think that they are.
Here's the thing: if out of this top 4, and I assume we're going to all agree on this, but it's Oklahoma City, Houston, Dallas, and Memphis. The way Memphis has been playing has been awesome.
Memphis is good.
Mention them.
Well, you saw the Mavs comeback against Memphis. What a game that was!
It was amazing. Who's dropping out and who's coming in? If those 4 aren't the top 4, because I feel like my pick would be Denver to move in on Memphis or Houston, but Denver's got their own host of issues outside of Nikola Jokic that might prevent them from being a top 4 seed. And then you look at Phoenix, obviously the injuries, the Warriors, who knows what they end up being, the Clippers. I mean, I don't know how the Clippers are doing this, honestly.
Yeah,
kind of some voodoo magic. Lakers, Spurs, I wonder how it splits around, or if this is kind of the hierarchy right now. That's all I'm looking at.
I trust Memphis more than I do Houston. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree with that, but I trust Memphis more than I do Houston. I truly believe OKC and Dallas are the top 2 teams in the West, and that's going to be kind of a battling for the 1 seed for the rest of the year, as long as both teams stay healthy, obviously. Denver seems like the right pick to kind of jump into number 4, and I know this team has looked terrible so far, and they're struggling, but I'm not going to just count out Minnesota yet. I'm really not going to count out Minnesota. I know they've been playing bad basketball, but they're still above 500. They're 11-10. And this is a team where I think, we're going to have that month where Anthony Edwards just wins player of the month because he's averaging about 35 points a game. So I'm not going to count out Minnesota. Phoenix, too, is another tough one, too, because with KD, you could argue they're right up there in the top tier of Western Conference teams. But how much Suns, KD, and Booker together are we going to get?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think if I had to swap one out for one, I think it would be probably the Rockets falling out of the top 4 and the Suns jumping in.
I don't hate that.
Just because I want to say the Nuggets too, man, but I don't think I can right now. I'm not excited about this Nuggets team. I don't see I just don't even see a personality or identity from this team. We knew who they were a few years ago, and
But is that a bad? But is that a bad thing, Dunny? Because my thing with the Nuggets is I feel like a lot of the guys outside of maybe Christian Brown and Jokic have got to been playing lower than what they usually do, especially Murray and MPJ, and they're still kind of getting by. They're 11-8. They're 3 games above 500. Jokic, willed them back in the game against the Warriors to win that game, and he's been unbelievable, having probably his best statistical season of his career, which is crazy to say about a 3-time MVP. But the fact of the matter is, I think if you're going to take one of these teams and be like, which one of these teams is, not exceeding expectations, but kind of been below expectations and still kind of treading water, it is the Denver Nuggets. And that's scary because you have the best player in the NBA and you have the role players, quote unquote, I call them role players, but the role players around him who aren't playing their top basketball yet. If that switches, you guys know when Jamal Murray gets hot, how good he can look. If that can just switch, this is a Nuggets team that can win 10 straight games. And I don't know if you can say that maybe for some of the other teams in the Western Conference.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's why I can't truly and not quit the Nuggets, but they just give me a very strange vibe this year, and I think I had much higher expectations, and I don't know, the Warriors are always weird too. They're just sitting there as the 6th seed. We saw that they were in that wow quadrant on the efficiency landscape. So the West is weird. It's crazy tight right now. What the Lakers or the Spurs are the 10 seed.
Yeah.
Timberwolves are 11 seed, and they're both only 5 games back.
And the Spurs, Stephon Castle's looking really good now. They got Devin Vassell back, and he's looking like a bucket again. The Spurs are another team that could be sneaky. So I'm excited to see how kind of the West evolves. Also, too, real quick, I wanted to say this earlier, but shout out Nico Harrison. We talk about the Mavericks and where they are now because of the moves they've made over the past 2 years. Shout out Nico Harrison. The Mavs would not be here without some of the moves they made, some of the risks they've taken. It just seems like it's all worked out, and I feel like every single role player they get, I fall in love with. I wanted to run through a wall for Najee Marshall during those stretch of games.
I don't blame you, man. Basketball's been fun in Dallas, man. So hell yeah, that was the 3 big things. I have something for you guys this week.
All right.
It's something we haven't had in a while, guys. I'm bringing back Dunny's old man take of the week.
Hey, here we go.
My favorite segment in the world is back.
I was thought about it. It came naturally. I wasn't fishing for it. I was watching a game. And I said to myself, guys, I think this is something that could fix people who don't like as many threes as we're seeing, and just something that could just make the game better in general. I think we need to start calling more travels on step backs and gathers. More specifically, the gathers on threes, whether guys are coming off a screen or just pick and popping, or we saw them try to do this with the Harden step back a few years ago, where they started to call guys on it. But too many guys who aren't James Harden do it and just blatantly travel. There's too many guys coming off screens who catch, take their 2 steps, then set their feet a little more so they're ready to shoot when they realize how wide open they are. It's calls that maybe don't affect the game all that entirely when they're missed, but I think it can slow down on the volume of 3-point shooting, which I know some fans don't like. Obviously, some fans love it. And I just think it's a way we can police the game a little better. I think more travels need to be called in the NBA, more specifically on the things I talked about, but just in general. I mean, watch an NBA game. You can find yourself 5 travels in that game, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
Yeah, you're right on that. I don't want to disagree with Dunny Old Man take of the week. So all I wanted to see was a Dunny Old Man take. That's all I want. My only concern, Dunny, is I don't like more whistles. I don't like more reasons for whistles for refs to get involved. I really don't like that. I know the threes has kind of been an issue. And I think the big reason, I think Shaq was the one who said this, which kind of surprised me a little bit, is because the 3 balls became so effective and so successful that everyone's just trying to copy each other, right? What do you see when someone has a great strategy or something? You just try to copy it, maybe twist it a little bit, but you're always trying to copy the best. And it just feels like everyone's playing the same style of basketball now. And that's not what we had about 10, 15 years ago when people were playing different styles. Would travels be a way maybe to help it? Maybe. I'll give you a maybe, Dunny. I'll give you a maybe. But my thing is, I don't want more whistles. The NFL tried to do this, right, with the pass interference and everything, and it's just more whistles is bad for the sport. It's bad for people watching. And I don't want them going out there and throwing, elbows at each other. But if we can get the refs less involved and find a way to maybe make it a little less 3 dependent, sure. But I don't know if the refs being able to call more travels is a good thing, because also too, Dunny, if we're talking about the guys who typically, and I say quote unquote travel, we're talking about a lot of big superstars. And what do they like to do? They like to bark. They like to bark at the ref. They like to complain. Giannis, LeBron, Luka, Tatum. We're talking about these guys. Dunny, we're talking about 2 of our guys right now. I would love to complain about getting called for travel. So as much as I love the Dunny Old Man take of the week back, I'm gonna politely disagree.
That's fine. I don't know if it's a complete fix. I think maybe we combine those 2 old man takes where let's make the game more physical, so those ticky-tack fouls aren't being called and those whistles aren't being blown, and maybe let's start to be a little more. Then we
combine all 3, because the way to do it is you get rid of the corner and make threes harder. That's how you get people to be more physical.
No, here we go again.
That's where we go.
Jay will not give up until the corner 3 is gone. He wants to play on a
triangle-shaped basketball
court.
I
want an actual arc. That's what I want. What kind of arc has 2 straight lines? I've never seen that before.
Fair enough.
Oh man!
I told you the way to fix it. Get rid of 3 seconds. Get rid of 3 seconds.
I like getting rid of 3 seconds. What if teams could put their own 3-point line, like baseball stadiums?
That would be sick, honestly.
Like if the Warriors,
could you imagine
the
Warriors is at half court?
Yeah.
Or they're like, we're pushing it all the way back where only Steph can hit. It'd be sick. Straight line across. You just
someone has like the Fenway Green Monster where you literally have like a wall and then it's just the shortest 3-pointer cutting into the paint on the right side.
Or like one half of the court's way shorter than the other. So in the second half, when when you're on that end, your threes are just way shorter to make.
Just blatant home court advantage. Just absolute blatant home court advantage.
It'd make it that would change the styles up. That's for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Play different.
I don't know if we're playing basketball at that point, but yeah, definitely would.
Something different.
The old man of the take of the week just did some serious damage to the show.
Yeah,
we all have different ideas for the future of basketball.
How about this? How about this? If you throw it off the backboard to yourself and dunk it, it's 4 points. We would get some wild, exciting
the push that we've got the last couple weeks or months I saw where people were like, dunks need to be 3 points was like one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That would be insanity. Could you imagine that? It would just be
going for a game-winning dunk for a three, just going reckless abandon at the rim.
Those are fans of teams who just got smoked by the Boston Celtics saying that.
Yeah. The shot chart would literally just be right under the hoop and outside the arc. Mid-range would never exist. Well, mid-range hotspot. Like, you know how make courts interactive now, and then it's got like a little circle in the court, like 4. DeMar DeRozan would be the greatest of all time.
I was going to say KD and DeMar would be
the greatest of all time.
Are you ready to spin the wheel?
Thanks for hearing out my old man take, guys.
Of course, Dunny, always. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's go full screen. Please don't give us the Rockets or the Mavs. We've talked a lot of Mavs,
I won't say a word if it's the Mavs. I won't say a word.
I know you won't. All right, let's go. Oh, no, that's worse. I jinxed us. I should have said no Lakers, and now we're back with the Lakers. This could be the shortest wheel ever if we need to. We talked about the Lakers. The wheel really hates us. I really think the wheel is a troll, and this is Dunny. You got the mute monster. See, the wheel muted Dunny. You won't even let Dunny talk about the Lakers. Steve's got nothing to say. He's just destroyed. He's between the 3-point line, no travels, and the Lakers wheel talk. Steve's got nothing. This literally broke the podcast. The Lakers wheel broke the podcast. Oh, it's all right. We're saved again.
I had a mute button on my mic. I didn't even know I had.
That's impressive, honestly.
That's a sign. That's a sign right there.
Yeah, I don't. What?
My mic heard the Lakers and just.
Yeah, your mic's like, no, that's it.
That's all we need to say. Like,
all right.
LeBron James is good.
No, is he? Is he?
Yeah.
This can be our Lakers talk. I have 2 questions for you guys, Lakers.
Oh no!
All right. Dunny's gonna play along with the wheel. Let's indulge him.
They're currently the 9 seed. Do they finish above or below that end of season?
Right at it. I think they're the 9 seed.
Yeah, they're right at the play.
They're playing
team.
They're playing too.
Second question. Over under 2.5 years, JJ Redick as the Lakers head coach.
Oh, how long does that coincide with LeBron?
Yeah, I think it's directly related.
Shams was saying that LeBron has. Shams was mentioning a couple weeks ago that next year he thinks is LeBron's last year. So if I'm rolling with what Shams is perpetrating, I'll say under. I say JJ's out with LeBron next year.
You think JJ stays in coaching or goes back to media?
No, JJ's going back to. He's going to go to ESPN.
That's what I think too.
Amazon Prime or NBC. I think JJ went into coaching.
Bag, baby.
Do you know what I think JJ did? I think JJ's a genius because he's like, okay, I could just go into coaching for 2 years. Then all these fat new TV deals are going to be signed by the time that I'm going back out. And who's going to be the biggest free agent once I get fired from the Lakers in TV money? JJ Redick. Amazon's calling him to be their lead analyst. NBC's calling him to be their lead analyst. ESPN's calling him back to be their lead analyst. He's getting the podcast back going. Like, JJ's in a great position, man. I really I commend him for taking the swing and doing this. But I think he also knows that he's going to make like $15 million a year no matter what. in media or basketball.
Yep.
The next couple of years. So
I think I'm right there with you. And now, you know what? I will say something about the Lakers. I want to give a little bit of props to the Lakers. I want to give a little props to NBA media, something I never do, because the Lakers have kind of been so irrelevant the last 2 weeks. I haven't had to hear about Bronny. Bronny stinks. He's out in the G League. Haven't had to hear about him.
What is Bronny doing?
Thank you. I don't care. I don't care.
Let's see Bronny
update.
Yeah, you need your Bronny up.
So guys,
I don't even know if you can find this stuff.
Does he have about like 8 standing ovations, 5 waters passed out? What do we got?
5 waters passed out. It's crazy.
You know what? I'm gonna steal something from one of my coworkers because he's a Celtics fan, Tony, like you. He's a Celtics fan like you, and every time we pull a Jordan Walsh card, he goes NBA champion Jordan Walsh head clapper. And I love it every time. And that's pretty much Bronny James. He's not a defending NBA champion. He's just had clapper, not even on an NBA team. But it is what it is. But I got to pull that one out. Shout out my guy, Josh. Jordan Walsh, defending NBA champion, had clapper. Bronny James, not NBA champion, had clapper in the G League.
You're talking Bronny James, who in the tip-off tournament in the G League averaged 5 points, 3 assists, and 2.5 rebounds. Are you kidding me? You're going to disrespect him like that?
Better than his first year in D1.
Yeah, listen, there's not a lot of guys out there that can put up 5, 3, and 2, all right? I'm just saying,
you're right. There's not a lot of guys out there.
He's doing a little of a lot. That's
now, you know what there is? There's a lot of NBA draft picks that can put that up in the G League.
Crazy, man.
Do you think you could put up
something nice about the Lakers?
Do I think I could put up 5, 3, and 2 in the G League? I wouldn't even sniff the court. I wouldn't even sniff the court.
You're on the court. You're playing minutes.
I'm on the court. I'm on the court. So I'm just all right. So here's what's happening. I'm not getting the rebounds because I'm about a foot shorter than everyone. I'll get the assists. I'll just pass the guy. Hope he does something. 5 points. I'll take 43s. Hope 2 go in. There you go.
Go to the lane. Just go to the lane, Steve.
Draw some content. You think what whistle you think I'm gonna get? What whistle could you possibly think I would get?
You're gonna get called for a travel on your gather stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I will. And you know what? I'll complain about it. I'll set the technical foul record in the G League because I'll just be complaining the whole time.
Maybe Bronny needs to turn into an enforcer.
I don't hate
Bring
that.
the enforcer back.
Dylan Brooks.
I don't hate
he said
that.
he wanted to be like a Derek White when he was coming in.
Well, you gotta know how to play defense to be a Derek White.
I said something nice about the Lakers. I don't know if anyone caught it. I said I like that they drafted Dalton Connect. I said that so I could say this really mean thing. They have lost by a combined 70 points in their last 2 games.
All right, let's hang on though. Let me give silver lining. 41 points in Miami. We know what happened in Miami. We call that game a wash for the Lakers, who had a little bit of a nice night in Miami. I'm assuming.
I'm
sure. I'm sure LeBron was over at D Wade's.
Did you see how they were playing defense? I hope they had a nice night.
I hope
they didn't even get back.
No, there was one clip. There was one clip that was going around today too. That was crazy. Where dudes didn't even move when you had the ball out. It was like in pickup when you're just like down like 14-3 in a game of 16. You're like, I'm just gonna stand here and wait, man. Why am I doing here?
Yep.
All right,
crazy man.
There you go, Wheel.
Yeah, the wheel's been a troll all year.
Wheel stinks.
We'll be back. The wheels stinks. Well, the wheel's coming back for revenge on Steve next week. It's going to be the Lakers yet again.
Oh no! The only thing
I'm just going to throw Bronny into the wheel. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to put Bronny as the 33rd entrant into the wheel, or 31st, and one day it's going to pop up for Steve, and he's not going to know what to do.
If the wheel lands on Philly next week, I'm logging off. It's you too. I'm not.
I got some stuff to say about Philly.
Go right ahead. I'm so sick of them.
Well, let's see what the wheel gives us next week. Let's see what happens.
Wait, can I actually real quick? Can I say one thing about Philly?
Sure.
Jake, I'm mugging off.
Pardon my take. Put out this stat today. For you NFL fans, you'll know who this guy is. If you don't, Ricky Pearsall is a NFL rookie wide receiver who plays for the 49ers. He got shot through his chest earlier this year.
Yep.
And since the NBA season has started, he's played 5 games, and Joel Embiid has played 4. Just in case we don't get,
they had a story come out that they are planning for April, May, and June basketball, not November basketball.
You got to get there. You're not going to get there.
Hey, listen.
You have to get there. You can't say that. No, no trust, no process. You cannot say that. You cannot make that claim at 5 and 15. That is outrageous.
The process.
And they actually drafted a good rookie too in McCain, and they're just flushing everything down the drain.
I feel so bad for Jared.
I feel so bad too.
I saw a TikTok of him. He was in Detroit. He's like, "Oh my God, it's snowing! It's the first time I've ever seen snow. I'm so grateful for life." I'm like, "They're gonna take this away from you, Jared. Get out of there as fast as possible. That joy that you have about life, they're coming for it, bro." We were gonna talk. Right now, as we're wrapping up here, the Cavs and the Nuggets are on. The Cavs are up 14 in the second quarter on the Nuggets, so not a good look for our Nuggets talk we were talking about earlier.
Mavs are up 16 on their scrimmage too. I forget who they're playing in their scrimmage.
It is a scrimmage, that's for sure.
That team's bad. Over under wins for the Wizards this season. What do you think? What should we set the line at? How about I'll set the line. I said they're 2. I'll set the line at
6.5.
I was going to say 12.5.
What's the worst record ever?
I'm going to set the line at 12.5. Would you go over or under? So that means, what is that? 13 and 60 would be over.
So the worst team ever.
65
9
losses,
and 73. The 9 and 73 1972 76ers, it looks like.
Okay.
9 and 73 is
9 and 73 is not good.
Well, in the shortened season, the Bobcats were 7 and 59.
Yeah, that's a better pace though than 9 and 73.
I think under 12. And I think they win like 10 games.
10 and 72.
10 and 72. And they're not even gonna get the first pick. That's gonna be the most hilarious part. They're gonna get like the 4th pick.
They better not get the first pick. Washington's replacement. Don't lie. Johnny, what do you got for record?
I'm like grossed out looking at this right now. That's insane, dude.
They've lost 15 straight? They're down 20 midway through the second quarter right now, so that's good.
0-10 the last 10, lost 15 straight.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to go under. This is a disgusting basketball team.
And they're probably going to get worse as the year goes on. I mean, what do they have to sell?
They haven't even had a close game in any of the law. Like, if you look at their schedule,
they're terrible.
Every game.
They're terrible.
It's tough for Wizards fans. They've only beaten the Hawks. Those are the 2 wins. 2 wins over the Hawks.
That's actually awesome, dude.
That's great because the Hawks have been like a pleasant surprise this year.
I was thinking they played the Celtics close because it seemed that way in my head, and I just went back and looked, and the C's won by 20.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think Donnie's thinking because the first quarter is like 4 points. It's like, oh no, what's giving us a game? If the Celtics aren't up 15 by the end of the first quarter, Donnie's like, oh, they played us tight. Ridiculous. What'd you win by? Like 12 last night without Tatum and
yeah, they couldn't cover though. I had 14.5. They're like, oh, let's just win by 12. A nice easy night. They're just dapping each other. I was like, no, this is a disgrace. You can't cover against
without Tatum and Holiday, and the Pistons shot over 50% from 3.
Ridiculous.
Just don't. Peyton Pritchard, 6th man of the year, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, if we ever get the season on the wheel,
he's the best contract in the NBA, like by far.
Has to be right now.
Question.
It's has
to be. 4 years, $30 million.
Do you think he could start on a different NBA team, Dunny? Pritchard?
Asked me that question 2 years ago, I would have said no. Asked me that question today, I say absolutely. Because he's a guy who has worked. I know all he gets the recognition for, and rightfully so, is the offense, but he for how undersized he is, and for, if you want to look at Pritchard and think that you have an easy matchup. And Steve, you probably noticed some of this in the NBA Finals. Like, he's no slouch on defense.
No, not at all. I also saw something gross too. I think it was a TikTok of Peyton Pritchard's like a buzzer beater percentage last year. He was like 7 of 11.
Yeah,
and the half of them were half court shots. What's going on?
It's crazy, man. Yeah, the Pritchard experience has been fucking awesome. Hopefully we get them next week.
And this is what I want to say to you right now. I'm looking at you, Wheel. This is what you get for picking the Lakers. You made me talk to Dunny positively about the Celtics. We talked about the 76ers. This is on you, Wheel. So get it together next week.
All right, Steve's bringing up beef with the Wheel now. We're in this dangerous territory of the season. You got a lot of weeks left, Steve. You gotta feel it in. Don't let that.
I call it how I see it. I call it how I see it.
All right. Well, we'll have to monitor next week. We'll see with the Wheel if it makes Steve happy or not. But all right, guys, that's it. See you next week.
Later, guys.
Oh, I did want to mention. I had one spicy take that I'll get into next week, but from my estimations of watching, I've been watching a lot more college basketball this year to start.
Ooh, we might have to have a talk next week.
I watched Duke and Auburn last night, and I'll just say that presumptive number 1 pick, I am not as sold as Surefire Superstar as everybody else is from what I see from the Duke basketball this year.
I've kind of been in that boat. I think he's solid.
I think he's good. He's more Cade Cunningham than he is Victor Wembanyama. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get into it next week, though. I'll get into that more. But I've watched a lot. I've watched more Duke than anything else, and
there's been some crazy college basketball.
Last night was awesome, though. Great games last night. Bama,
the Maui Invitational too. I know we hadn't talked since then. Unbelievable. Oh,
watching you get shit on for 3 straight games is pretty.
Wednesday night, the little pre-Thanksgiving go out with your buddies. We came back to my buddy's apartment. We were betting on the Maui Invitational till 2:30 in the morning. Nothing better. Shout out Bill Walton. There's the perfect Maui Invitational tournament to pay tribute to Bill Walton.
That's facts. All right, folks. We'll see you next Thursday. Thank you, Dunny. Thank you, Steve. Jake, signing off. Have a great